This room was only a few square meters, yet the owner charged each of us $1,000 outside the mountain blizzard waited, so we accepted. It was December 2025. Our car had skidded off a cliff in a whiteout, leaving us with no signal, no shelter, and air below minus 20 degrees. The only hope we had was a faint house shape that Ethan thought he saw on the slope as we fell. We hid for a short time in a shallow cave while snow piled up at the entrance. To steady himself, Mike spoke about mountain legends, about ghosts in the snow and missing climbers, and ended with the tale of the two-head inn, a paper-thin inn that hung from a cliff and crushed anyone who entered until nothing remained. I said that even a haunted inn sounded better than freezing to death. No one laughed. Ryan began to blame Mike for the wrong route, but Ethan pointed into the dark and said he saw a light. Through my camera, we saw a narrow door set in a black rock wall, almost hidden by blowing snow. We forced our way through the wind and knocked. The long-haired man stared out at us through the glass, then dropped a metal cover over it. When the cover lifted again, another man pushed out a note that said, "Room, $1,000 per person," and pointed at his ears to show that he could not hear or speak. We were furious, but the code was worse. So I wrote that we agreed. Warm air hit us as the door opened. The hallway inside was so narrow that we had to pass in single file. From the first room came the clack of mahjong tiles. The second door stood half open, and a girl with long hair sat very still on a chair until the owner shut the door. Our room was a third, barely larger than a narrow bed. A note on the wall said, "Bathroom next door, do not wander, do not disturb other guests." We paid again for food. Boxed meals slid in through a crack. The food looked normal and tasted hot, and soon the others slept. The blizzard roared outside mahjong footsteps, and snoring blended into one dull sound, and at last the heat drove me alone to the bathroom. On the sink there was one toothbrush and one worn towel that were not ours and looked as if many strangers had used them. As I turned to leave, I almost walked into a woman. She stood in silence, her face empty, and her head was almost touching the ceiling. No normal body could reach that height. I fled back to the room with my heart racing. The next morning, the storm was worse. Mike was pale and shaking. Ethan guessed that he had claustrophobia, and Mike begged us to leave the inn. We persuaded him to wait one more night. The following morning, Mike was gone. The owner said he heard the main door open during the night while the storm still howled. Outside, white wind tore over the cliff. Ethan said we should search for Mike, and I held his arm and said that going out now was the same as suicide, and that Mike could only pray for his own luck.